here, so definitely come on in. We are talking about preparing for the next level of funding because that's essentially something that's very important for organizations to do. But for some reason, they're so busy at chasing the funds that they forget to work on the infrastructure. So, one thing I'm going to say with that is that when you take your time to focus on the funds only and you forsake the infrastructure and you don't focus on it, what happens is you have an organization that's hard to manage and becomes very difficult to scale and grow. So it makes it very hard for the nonprofit to get to the next level. And that's why we're going to talk about how to prepare for the next level of growth because when you don't do that, your company, your organization, whether nonprofit or for profit, becomes a problem. It has a big issue at hand and that needs to be addressed. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what that looks like. So if you're here, hashtag live. If you're catching the replay, hashtag replay, because then we're here to just talk about this and really give you some ideas of what you need to focus on. Hi, Dr. Melissa, how are you doing? It's great to see you, or basically interact with you. So thank you for joining me. Now, one thing I'm going to talk about before we get started is something that came to mind that I wrote down. The way your organization is operating is the direct reflection of how organized your operations and systems are. Now, why I say this and why this is something that came to my mind is because oftentimes when your organization looks very disorganized, like I'm sure you've gone to outreach events or you've tried to collaborate with other organizations, right? You have a conversation with them, they drop the ball, you never hear back. And what happens there is that this organization has no follow-up system. The person is too busy or burnt out to remember this. It looks like a lack of organization. And what that does, it puts a sour taste in your mouth of not wanting to work with that organization anymore. So that's why I say it's very important for organizations and social enterprises to focus on the infrastructure part. I met with a dear colleague of mine, another entrepreneur, and she shared with me that on the nonprofit leg of her business, like they've been in operation for a couple of years, but they're slowing down this year to fix the infrastructure because it's causing a lot of burnout in the organization, which is unfortunate because your organization may be doing really well, but because of the lack of organization on the back end, the systems, the operations, like what happens is your organization sometimes has to take a step back and focus on that because different things can occur when your operations are out of whack. You have like horrible like staff retention and the impact delivery is not as well as it should be. So these are areas that I need you to come back to center and realize that they affect your nonprofit organization more than you think. And Dr. Melissa, like essentially, like I'm glad that's one thing you're focusing on right now, Dr. Melissa, because a lot of people don't understand it. They think the funding is the most important part, but when the funding comes, the one thing that occurs is that if you don't have the infrastructure in place and that money comes through, you're going to have a problem like delivering and having an impact because nothing was in place. And that's why a lot of nonprofits have issues with their board. There's no infrastructure in place, there's no systems in place to ensure there is an accountability or communication system. All of these things are things that matter and make the process go smoother. Because then imagine you have people on your board, right? And you're the only person working and no one on the board is doing anything. Now, how could you have avoided that? Because there's the aspect where there is this communication with the board and you're following up with people. Some people think, oh, I don't want to babysit. How about you set up systems and workflows for that? A lot of people think it's manual. You have to do all these manual things. Slack is a great thing. There are CRM systems you can create workflows because then I love myself a workflow. and Dubsado and all of that works for me because I can set it up, automate, and go, right? I can just make sure if I had a board meeting and like we had a conversation with the board and let's say John said he was going to handle this. I'm going to make sure I set up a workflow and automation for John specifically to make sure he's keeping himself accountable. Communication, all these systems matter because then you are not doing too much, right? You are focusing on the task at hand and you're not the one running around like, I'm the boss, I'm doing everything and stuff like that. Because then a lot of times people feel like it's the best thing since sliced bread. They have the authority and the organization, but you're not only managing yourself and your task, you're managing other people in their task. And that's exhausting. And that's the part I want you to realize that if you have proper operations and systems in place, it saves you that headache. Now, I wrote down like how I define operations, right? For those who do not understand what it is, operations is basically how your organization runs behind the scenes. Now, how your organization or company runs behind the scenes is just as important as the work that you do to deliver an impact to the community that you serve, right? Now, I also talk about systems all the time, and systems are repeatable processes and tools your organization or company uses to make operations consistent and efficient. So we have those two definitions down. Now, operations, everything that keeps your organization functional, right? That can look like hiring staff, managing programs, handling money, and communicating with your team. So remember the example I gave with your board that likes the accountability and all that stuff and setting up the automations. That would be a way that, like, that would be the operation of the organization. Like, there's a system, like, there's a way that you operate, which is making sure that everybody has a way to communicate. There's follow through, there's follow ups happening so the team is on their toes, okay? So it's the everyday work that supports your mission, whether anyone sees it or not. Because the work that happens on a daily basis, I don't want to say it's more important than your mission, but that's what's going to lift up your mission to make sure you don't fall apart. Because then, as much as some organizations or some founders, some executive directors like put the mission before everything, if you don't have an operation that like matches what you want to do, it's going to fall apart. It's going to fall apart because you're only one person, right? And I've met executive directors that have teams that are not qualified to do the job that they're hired for. Okay. So I'm sorry to be the one to say it. Sometimes people hire folks that are not qualified to do the work. Like they hire them because they will take low salary, right? But they don't know how to do the job. And that's the problem because then it's costing you and your operations are suffering because of it. You have no systems in place to ensure that these people learn because sometimes you hire people that don't know how to do it, but you don't teach them properly. You had no systems in place to ensure that they knew what they were doing. So all of these things are things that like come to my mind and I'm like, it makes my skin crawl sometimes because you are doing the work of five people because you didn't set up these things, and that's not okay. So, examples of systems, like I already shared, it's repeatable processes and tools that you use, that your organization or company uses to make your operations consistent and efficient. So, in terms of systems, I got my notes, I got everything here, so please don't mind me if I look away. So, think checklists, right? Think templates, dashboards, softwares, workflows, anything, any like systems, they make it possible for your organization and company to scale without having to start from scratch every time. And that's the reason that a lot of organizations and companies, Dr. Melissa, listen, a lot of organizations and companies have an issue when somebody says, I quit. All right. Because yes, it's hard to lose somebody. It makes you feel like you weren't doing your job and you were a horrible boss and stuff like that. But when you don't have the systems in place to ensure that somebody that comes afterwards will be able to pick up the pieces, it puts you in a position where you're freaking out every time somebody quits. And that's a part that you don't want. And it's easier for somebody to quit when you don't have the systems to make better hiring decisions. Okay. Because then I read something 2 years back that says, hire quickly, fire faster. Like it wasn't in those exact terms, but that's exactly what it was saying. But you need systems to be able to do that. Okay. Like you'll interview people. Yes, it has to do with your gut oftentimes, but also there needs to be a system in place that qualifies the person you're hiring, that qualifies them and looks at their skills. And also you need to have a good ear to listen to what they're saying and see if they're a right fit for the culture that you're building. But you don't have system in place. You have no culture. Like right now, like a lot of leaders are living off of vibes. Like, I don't like this person, but the person you don't like may be the person that helps you scale your organization to the next level. You made a decision not based on systems that you had in place, but based on your feelings and emotions. So oftentimes, like people hire too fast and don't fire quickly enough. So they end up bleeding money because they wanted to keep somebody on staff, right? That wasn't a great fit. I'll give you an example about that. So 2 years ago, I hired two young ladies in the nonprofit I founded. They were getting paid. The salary was, if I remember correctly, $22 per hour. And they were working, like I never had a problem. But then I started noticing that the balls were being dropped and I had to pick up a lot. And every time I trained someone on something, they would tell me they don't know how to do it. So at that point, I'm like, I feel like Bubba the Fool, Boo Boo the Fool at this point. Because then this person playing with my face, I just had a baby. I'm tired, but I feel like I'm doing their job as well. So at that point, when I was working at that organization, like the SOPs were not fully drafted, and that experience enabled me because I was always systems driven. So I was able to edit the SOPs to ensure the next person would do well. But the other thing that happened, yes, we had systems that were not perfect, but I was slow to fire because of my feelings. I know this person had a child, I felt bad, but then the day I had to let them go, I had to get the executive director involved because I'm soft. Okay, I ain't gonna lie about it. I'm very soft. So firing somebody, it ripped my heart apart. But come to find out, this person was texting another employee that they were going to the mall. They weren't going to the work. They were lying about it. So it's like sometimes you have to follow this. If your systems tell you this person, if somebody on the staff is not able to follow through, even if you have two training, that's when documentation started being a big thing for me, right? If they're not following through based on the guidelines of the organization, you got to let them go. So the systems that I was able to put in place because of this experience enabled me to know when and if a person is not a great fit. So there needed to be a system that I had in place for that organization. I was the project director at that time, for that organization 2 years ago, to be able to make decisions. Now, there was another experience a year later, somebody else that was hired, and it felt good at the beginning, right? But after two incidents, I'm like, Stacy, we're not doing this. Follow your systems and pay attention and document and follow your gut. Listen, I kid you not, this person was already looking for another job and ready to quit. They took the job because they had one foot in and one foot out and ready to leave. So sometimes you have to follow the systems that you have in place and not follow just your emotions, because those are not going to guide you to where you need to go, is what I'm trying to say. So really look into the way you operate your organization and company and start looking to fix the infrastructure instead of just chasing money, because there's a level of preparedness that you have to get this fund that you're chasing when you focus on the operations and systems, right? Even if you're a one-person show or two-person show, it can feel better if you have those things in place. Now, how can it feel better? That's something that I want to talk on, because then I've had a few conversations this week. I ask people in the DM sometimes, like, what's going on with your organization? Tell me. And a few of them have told me I'm a one-person show. The one question that came to my mind, and I did not want to offend, is why? You're a one-person show. Why? Because I know nonprofits need a board. Oh, they're lazy. Whose fault is that? Because then there's a reason they're not doing anything. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if you have somebody on a board and they don't want to do the work, they don't need to be on the board. What do your bylaws say? You have to look at your bylaws. What does it say? Because then if that person, is time for them to go, it's time for them to go. If they're there, you know they're competent, but they're not doing the job. Maybe there's a system thing on the way you operate that needs to change. There needs to be a different operation plan in effect to ensure that your board members are doing the work and you're not doing, like, you're not a one-person show. Because then in terms of the board members, did you even have a meeting with them? Hey, Shannon, did you even have a meeting with them to establish what their roles were? And they sign an acknowledgement form. That's the other thing that I'm seeing on boards. They're not signing an acknowledgement form of what their roles are in the nonprofit. That should be part of the way you operate. You should operate. You bring somebody on board, make sure they sign an acknowledgement form and understand their role and what happens if they cannot follow through. Because if they cannot follow through, why are they there? Why are they there? They gotta go. You gotta chuck this deuces up and tell them they have to go. Whatever you're, do it more professionally. I'm on Facebook, so I'm gonna be a little bit more of myself right now, so don't mind me. So, anyways, what I'm saying is, like, you have to look at how they're operating, check your bylaws. How do you replace this person? If not replace, what's the next step? If your bylaws do not reflect those things, maybe it's time you amend them. A lot of people don't understand in nonprofit organizations, your bylaws will determine how you're able to operate. So, one tip I usually have for people that reach out to me, because I don't work with new nonprofits, one thing they ask me, what should I focus on? What do your bylaws say? What is it you're trying to do with the organization? Because if you're trying to remain as a working person in the organization, what do your bylaws say? Right? Do your bylaws give you enough power in the organization to make decisions? Do your bylaws tell you how to deal with a board member that's not pulling their weight? Do your bylaws tell the board members they have to contribute? Do your bylaws say anything? So you need your bylaws to support your operations, and you need an operational plan to support the work you're doing. But if you have no plan in place, how are you going to do it? You don't know how you're communicating with your team. You don't know how you're handling money. When money comes through the organization, how is it managed, right? Who's responsible for the report? Who's responsible for anything? Like, all of these things are things that need to be crafted out right now. And that's why, like, I know I'm talking a lot about these things today. That's why I'm even doing the free masterclass tomorrow called Get Fundable and Stay Functional. Because a lot of organizations, they're functioning, but things are not working right, right? They're burnt out, and it looks like I'll give you an example. Like, sometimes some people can be high functioning, but they're stressed. They're stressed out. Okay, I'm gonna be very PG. They're stressed out. They're stressed out. They don't know what to do with themselves. And sometimes organizations and social enterprises are functioning that way. They're very functional, right? But not to the best of their ability. Like, they're just working to do the work, right? They're not actually functioning in the way they're supposed to. They're not consistent and they're not efficient. And that's the other thing. A lot of organizations and enterprises, they lack efficiency. Just like I notice a lot of people, you may know how to do the job, but you lack a level of efficiency. I've seen people do the same work I do and they take days and weeks. Like, How? How did you not figure out how to do it in a more efficient way? Like, I had one person that I train, and email wise, she was sending the same email to multiple people, right? And same thing, same thing, same thing. Y'all, I kid you not, the same thing. And for me, if I'm sending the same message to multiple people, I have Google Workspace for my business. I have a tendency to just use the CSV template feature because you can email up to 50 people per day. If it's the same email, I just make sure my CSV columns are specific to that individual because it will populate the variables for me based on the first row. Okay, based on the columns or whatever, it will populate the variables. Now, if you don't know what I mean by variables, it's like the variable like first name or whatever, like it will plug it in for me for each person. So I use that feature to email up to, because then that person I was training, her role was to help set up an event. And we had to email about 30 vendors. But she sat down and sent the same email, copy and paste to each person. Why? To me, that was a lack of efficiency. Even though I was able to teach her how to do it, she wanted to continue doing it that way. So it took a lot of her time. Some people prefer sticking to what they know instead of what's efficient, and it's causing them to lose a lot of time that they don't have. And that's why systems are so important. What processes and tools can you set up for your organization and company to ensure a level of consistency and efficiency within your operations? So that's my piece on that. Because then I wished her the best. You know, I didn't fire her because of that, but I wish her the best because then some people just I'm very solutions minded. For those who don't know me, I am very solutions minded. And I think about how I can do my job in an efficient way. There are some things that I don't know how to do yet, but I tell people, like, if I know someone that knows how to do it, teach me how to do it so I don't waste my time. Just like, what example can I give you? There's like I also know how to make documents ADA compliant because for the state of California, you have to post ADA compliant documents. And for nonprofits, it's also a great thing to do because I think it's Title 14. I don't remember what policy it is for nonprofits, but posting ADA compliant documents or making sure your website is ADA compliant is a good thing for nonprofits. And I know how to make PDFs and because I used to be a web contributor for a program, a state program, so I know how to do these things. But one thing I did not know how to do is how to get each tag. If you're familiar with PDFs and making things ADA compliant, you have to look at every line item and make sure they are tagged properly. But I was doing them one by one, and somebody taught me how to do it multiple at a time. So, well, they didn't teach me. I had to ask because then I know there's a better way to do things, and you must be willing to learn. So, the fear of learning something different or being put in a position where things feel uncomfortable can often stop the blessings that are meant for you because you fear change. And that's where I want to help people through operations and systems. You know, the operations part, auditing what your operations look like and what systems you have and what you can improve are things that I enjoy doing. Like, I kid you not, I geek out on this stuff because that's the stuff I enjoy. The operations part and the systems. How can you improve the way you operate? And what systems can you use to make sure it is consistent and efficient? So that's my 2 cents. I know there are like two people, Shannon and Dr. Melissa. Both of you are on here. If you have any questions, drop them as I am still going through this because I had some jewels today that I wanted to share and it felt like a great time, so I'm on. So definitely, if you have any questions, drop them here because it's it's one thing that we want to make sure we tackle is improving the operations and systems in the organizations that you lead, like right now. Now, one thing I read, I'm reading a book by Howard Falco. It's called I Am. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this book, but one thing that it says in here that stuck with me, because then I like reading and also listening to some books, right? And one thing it shares is that ignorance's destiny is awareness. The ignorance of this truth is what causes it to occur in a painful fashion. So what I gather from that in regards to the work that I do, right? When you don't know what you're doing, the best way to improve that future is to make sure you gain a level of awareness, right? And organizations that are not like leaders that are not able to get out of their own head and learn something different and kind of kick their ignorance to the side when it comes to certain processes, that causes a lot of pain, a lot of issues in the organization itself. So it's very important that there needs to be a level of awareness in nonprofit leaders and social enterprise leaders to ensure that organizations are actually growing. Because the title of this live, let me go back to my post earlier, preparing for the next level of funding. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people think it's just so simple, preparing for the next level of funding. But if you are trying to build an organization that grows, an organization that's able to scale, and growth does not only happen with funding, it happens with the impact you're making. But how can you make an impact and make it exponential if you're not taking care of the operations? Because let's say, how are you going to serve more people if you do not? Because when you have a seamless operation, you can also increase your capacity. Your capacity is how well you can do the work, right? Now, capacity can look like different things, maybe more staff, more volunteers, more money, more knowledge, more skills in the organization. But how are you going to do that when there's no operational structure in place to ensure that the capacity of the organization is increasing? There's a reason there's some foundations that offer capacity building grants because they understand that the impact that you make is tied to your capacity, but capacity building is tied to how you're able to operate. So it behooves me how some leaders do not connect all of them. You need to operate efficiently to be able to build the capacity that allows you to make more of an impact. Okay, Dr. Melissa said, what would you suggest if you don't have the funding for staff yet? You have a lot of key roles that are needed to run the organization, such as funding, compliance, etc. I'm the founder, but I struggle to focus on the things I should because I'm swinging at everything from all levels. Okay. Dr. Melissa, I'm gonna be very blunt with you because I don't know how else to be. And that's why my friends take me in doses. But you're gonna have to figure out which one comes first and focus on that and finish it. Okay, because then you make a plan, because I highly suggest that you sit down and make a plan of where you want the organization to go and what the progression should be. So if you have the roles listed out, why do you have these roles? What is each person going to be responsible for, right? So let's say you focus on the infrastructure first, the board members and everything. That's what you have. That's the capacity you have, right? So you have the board members, you have yourself. And Dr. Melissa, like, I know you put the hands like this in the target. How are your board members? Are they doing anything? Or are they competent? Because then whatever I'm going to say has to do with your board members. Are they competent? Because if they are, let me know, because then it will determine what I say next. Let me know. I'll wait. So, Dr. Melissa, I'm just waiting for you to let me know, and then I'll keep it pushing. Okay, while I wait for Dr. Melissa, I'm gonna give an example because right now your organization, if it's at its infancy stage, it's not yet a growth stage nonprofit, there are different things that you need to focus on. First of all, focus on your infrastructure, like your operations. So what is the operational plan in place to ensure that you are using the tools that you have? Okay, if they're not doing the work that is needed, like think about when the next board meeting is and make it a board meeting that's a working board meeting if they're not doing the work outside, and ask people to tell you when they're going to be able to deliver on this because this is a non-negotiable. They signed up to be on the board and they signed up to implement, make sure that the nonprofit is able to accomplish its mission, and you need them to do the work they said they would do. So you have to ask them, like, stand 10 toes. What are you able to do, and when are you going to be able to deliver this? Is that when you said, okay, let's follow up, let's schedule a follow-up call to see what is happening so you can make sure that they are doing the work that they're doing? And you said, I've been trying to utilize AI employees and apps to help. Is a good practice regarding systems in place for now. What are you using your AI employees for? and apps to help. Because if you're not able to manage the board members you have right now, it's going to be hard for you to bring actual people in to manage. So you need to learn how to manage the people you got so you can bring in more people. So you have to set up the documentation that you need to make sure that they're doing what they need to do before you bring more people on. Because then when you bring more people on to a hot mess, what it causes is a bigger mess, right? So you need to be able to manage the people you have. So definitely go to the drawing board, talk to your board members, like make a list of immediate action items that need to occur, and find out from them when they will be able to complete this task, and find, like, also evaluate your board members. I know I did a board training a few months ago, and one thing that I made sure I did before this board training, I sent an assessment to every board member to figure out what their skills and knowledge were before the training. The reason for that, you want to understand what everybody's able to do and also give them an opportunity to sign up for different areas. Hey, what will you be able to help with? And give them check boxes. And if they tell you they'll be able to help with fundraising, like when you have that board meeting, make sure you tell them, okay, this is what we need. Okay. So send them an assessment to figure out where they are, what they have time for, and what you can lean on them for. Because being on a board is not, especially a newer nonprofit, it's work. And you need to have that conversation and talk them through what's necessary. If you need to create an acknowledgement form for these board members to sign, like, hey, this is the expectation, this is what the bylaws say, and I have an acknowledgement form that I need to put on file. Here you go, like at the board meeting, and just have everybody go through it, like go through it with them, like talk to them about what the expectations are, and go, Dr. Melissa. Like, really, it's you have to bring the board front and center so you're not doing everything yourself. Okay. AI employees, social media, is that what you're saying? Social media and then volunteers. I'm not sure how that works, so we're definitely gonna have to talk about that. But start with the board, Dr. Melissa. You really need to tap into the board members that you have. Tap into the people that you have, because if you're not able to do that, then it's going to be very hard for you to go to the next level. Yes, you can do a lot by yourself, but nobody goes far fast. You go further faster with the help of other people, and I need you to embrace that and acknowledge that and get buy-in from these board members so you're not feeling like you're stretched thin and doing too much. Okay. Um, Let me read the second part of your question to make sure we're good. Um, Yeah, you need a lot of key roles. We talked about that. So again, focus on the board first before you bring anybody else, because then we need to make sure we do that. So to focus on the things I should because I'm okay. All right, so we got that. Any other questions? I'm not sure if I answered your question fully, Dr. Melissa. Let me know, because then I want to make sure I don't leave you hanging. Yeah, manage those folks. And I also have, like, think about what you need for the nonprofit. What you need for the nonprofit, especially for the board. What you need for them, an acknowledgement, a list of action items that are immediate that you need them to work on because you need to focus on them first. Focus on them and then go to the next thing. Don't try to jump tasks and jump tasks. Like manage what you got. Manage like front and center. For some reason, my give me a second. Let me send my so my son for some reason is calling me to give him Robux. If any of you are familiar with Robux, that's the currency for the app Roblox. Okay, so he's gonna call like 10 times and I'm gonna have to turn my phone eventually off eventually. So I apologize. I apologize, y'all. Okay, so focus on that and then go to the next step. Because then I don't want you to be so distracted by all the things that you need to do that you don't do what's needed right now. So start with the board. I would say three. Find three things, immediate things that are needed for the nonprofit. Three things that are needed and how you need their support. Okay. So we'll focus on that. Dr. Melissa, he called 5 times and he's texting me now. Okay. So, like, I swear, like, how many texts did I? Yeah. So he texts a couple of times, but yeah, my kid is something else. But anyways, I'm glad I was able to answer those questions, and operations and systems are definitely important when doing the work in a nonprofit organization. That's what enables you to run a functional board and also have be able to accomplish your vision, because if you don't have those things in place, it's going to be very hard for you to even do these things and for you to even get the funding you're looking for, because sometimes your operations and systems determine how efficient you are with grant writing, how efficient you are with engaging with your stakeholders and building relationships. So don't sleep on that. Okay. Do not sleep on that. Now, I know that there is the free masterclass tomorrow. Let me put the link in the comments. The free masterclass, it's called Get Fundable, Stay Functional. It's happening tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. And that is definitely one that I recommend attending. And it's tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, and that's 6:30 Eastern time. So if you're on the East Coast, that will be 6:30 for you. And the other thing, if you are not sure, if you are a growth stage nonprofit, not a new nonprofit, if you're a growth stage nonprofit and you're looking to audit your operations and system to see how you can improve it or do better, definitely apply for an operations and systems mini audit. Those are free 15-minute operations and system audits. And Dr. Melissa, I look forward to seeing you there. It's going to be a good time. I'm excited. I have not done a masterclass in 2 months, so it's long. I've been waiting for that and I'm excited. So I will see you tomorrow. I know I've been like running my mouth for quite some time, but thank you for coming live and for your questions. And if you have any more, definitely send me a DM. I'll check it as soon as I can, but I appreciate y'all. Bye. Thank you.